Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And good morning, Manitoba Female Hockey League fans, into another edition of the MFHL podcast here on your home for MFHL hockey on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Live on both places right now. We're brought to you by Elite Prospects, Goaltenders, Movement, Fitness, and Performance, Elite Prospects, as well as, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Terrico. It's great to have you all here for episode 6 here in season 3. If you're tuning into this one, we got a bit to talk about today. We've seen a change in our power rankings as well, which I can't wait to get into that. But we're going to start off with showing you some highlights from this past weekend's action. Starting off with, Friday night, we were at the Hockey for All Center to broadcast the Winnipeg Ice taking on the Westman Wildcats, and at the time, the Winnipeg Ice looking to keep their undefeated streak going, as well as Westman looking to knock off the still first place Winnipeg Ice at this point. But we start things off in the second period after a scoreless first period. Walker sends this to the net, searching after it would be Aaliyah Texiera jumping up from her point position to cash in that rebound. That goal was on the power play, by the way. Ice would be on the power play a bit later on in this period, where they would do, something similar. Work it towards the front of the net once again, and finding this would be the Winnipeg Ice to beat Indigo Stone. Winnipeg would take this one by a score of, taking a look at it, 3-1, I believe, over the Westman Wildcats was the final. Just to confirm it, for some reason in my head, just couldn't remember the score. Ended up being 4-1, for the Winnipeg Ice, as they would add on a goal in that third period of action. Westman would, of course, end up getting on the board in that third period, but would come away with yet another loss for them. Start off this season. By the way, that was Sophie Wozniacki who would put in that third goal for the Ice. Cassie Carvalho, who had herself a pretty busy weekend on the score sheet, ended up scoring the empty net goal to give the Ice their 3-goal lead back at the time. Peyton Smith was the goal scorer for the Westman Wildcats, and crazy enough, almost every single goal in this game ended up being a power play marker, as 3 of the 5 goals in total ended up coming on the girl advantage. We'll move into Saturday's action. It was our last MFHL game day broadcast of the weekend. The Eastman Selects, fresh off of their first loss of the season to the Ice this past Wednesday, they would welcome in the Central Plains Capitals, where last time these two teams faced off against each other, in fact, the weekend before, on the Sunday, the Eastman Selects would end up winning that game by a score of 6-1. The Central Plains Capitals coming in might have had different intentions, but the Selects' intentions remain the same.
To the left of Schwartz, she's the starting goaltender this afternoon.
By face-off draw one in the first period from the Eastman Selects, so it would be worked towards the front of the net, where a rebound right there for Maya Grenier would allow for Eastman to take the 1-goal lead to start off this one. They would score 3 in total in the first period, and in fact went up 4-0, but then Ava Mearley's number 5 for the Central Plains Capitals had a girl heading to the net with her, decided to shoot it, puts it past number 34 in Addison Tomes. That would be the only goal of the game, though, for the Central Plains Capitals, as it would be a 5-1 victory for the Eastman Selects. As Eastman, take a look at the standings, improved to 4-0-0-0-0-0-1, as a lot of zeros in the columns leading up to their shootout loss there, as you can see on the screen. In terms of Sunday, they ended up getting Thanksgiving Sunday off. Same with the Yellowhead Chiefs, since Yellowhead was out of town this past weekend down in Edmonton, competing in the Canadian Crown tournament. But as for the Winnipeg Ice, they ended up, losing their first game of the season against the Pembina Valley Hawks on Saturday in a shootout. Shout out to Pembina Valley, who had honestly the most impressive week out of any team in the MFHL, earning their first 2 wins of the season, and now just a point back of the Westman Wildcats and Central Plains Capitals with 2 games in hand. We're going to get into power rankings as well as stats from around the league. We'll showcase the scores from this past weekend of action too, and then we're going to preview just a couple matchups that are on a rather quiet weekend of the schedule here in the MFHL season, as we'll be back coming up shortly after this commercial break. You're watching the MFHL podcast for Season 3, Episode 6, on your home for MFHL hockey on G-Show Productions and gshow.ca. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And welcome back to this edition of the MFHL Podcast Season 3, Episode 6 on this Thursday morning as we get set for our lone game that we're going to be covering this weekend on Saturday, which we'll be getting into coming up here in this next part of the podcast. By the way, as mentioned before, we started talking MFHL on this Thursday morning, brought our sponsors up and going to bring them up again. This show brought to you by lovely sponsors in Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, Movement Fitness and Performance, Elite Prospects, and Goaltenders. Thank you to them for continuing to support us and our coverage of everything here on the network, including, for this episode specifically, the MFHL, the U18 AAA Hockey League here in the province of Manitoba, which will take a look at the standings once again and show you how this ended up happening. As back on Friday, there were 3 games that were on tap, or 2 games, that were on tap. We look back at that Wednesday matchup, which the Winnipeg Ice came away with a 4-3 shootout victory in the battle of number 1 versus number 2 that night so far here in the MFHL, as Eastman, of course, is second place currently. Winnipeg would follow it up with, of course, a 4-1 win on Friday night, as we showed you those highlights. And Central Plains starting off their weekend with a 3-1 victory at home against Interlake. As we go into Saturday's action, things got a bit interesting in that middle game specifically. The Pembina Valley Hawks, after starting off 0-3, they're able to come away with what could be one of their biggest wins of the season. I'm sure they're hoping for more big ones down the line, but this definitely falls into that category. What a performance from their goaltending to just the resiliency in front. 4-3 victory. They get it done in the shootout to give the Ice their first loss of this regular season. As for the other matchups, though, not as close, as the Westman Wildcats pulled away with a 5-0 victory, and Eastman taking care of business, of course, in Niverville, as they ended off their weekend with their only game on a high note heading into this. Well, not this upcoming week, as we'll get into that in just a moment here, but on Sunday there were also 3 matchups in the league on this past Thanksgiving weekend, and Pembina Valley doing it again, coming away with another shootout victory where they bested the Westman Wildcats back in Morden, Manitoba, by a score of 4-3. A huge comeback in that third period, forcing things to go to overtime. Nothing answered, and of course Pembina Valley able to come away with their second straight victory in dramatic fashion. The Winnipeg Ice bounced back big time. Cassie Caravallo spoke about her having herself a big weekend. Well, there you go right there. A hat trick for number 16, as the Ice able to fend off the Central Plains Capitals, even though Central Plains had 2 goals to the Ice's 1 in that third period. And as for the Winnipeg Avros, this team looking really strong right now. A 10 spot put up on the Interlake Lightning in that matchup, where as for the Winnipeg Avros, they would end up improving their goal total to 26, which is the most per game in the league right now by average, since they got 2 games in hand on the Winnipeg Ice. For the full context of all these games, if you want to check out the stats for yourself, be sure to visit MFHL U18 AAA.com. Taking a look at, well, the reason why Yellowhead wasn't in competition this past weekend is they ended up going down to Edmonton, playing different teams from different leagues here in this beautiful country. But yeah, Yellowhead, they ended up falling short in the semifinals this past weekend, but saw what they ended up posting. Posted, kind of a weekend recap video, and it was great to see them having a lot of fun down in Edmonton, Alberta this past Thanksgiving weekend, as there was a lot to be thankful for this past weekend. Just seeing the NHL getting back in the full swing of things, as hockey is officially back here at every single level in 2025. But getting to see, some great scores, some great results, and just some great action from the MFHL. And other things we covered this past weekend, including MMJHL hockey. But I believe we'll show you the stats here coming up. Yes, Ivy Perkin, your new stat leader, 2 points per game so far, leading the league in assists with 10. Sophie Wasowski, though, right behind her in that category with 8, as we can see here. But yeah, Ivy Perkin, proving us right now. She was our MVP pick in our preseason predictions. It'll be interesting to see if she can keep up this pace. And honestly, if I'm a betting man, which, I don't mind, placing some bets for sports and stuff. If it was possible to bet on this league, I'd put my money on Ivy, of course, so far to be the MVP of this league. Definitely looking like the front runner to start things off. Quite a few players tied in the point category right now. We see Blake Hawes having herself a huge start to her season. Her and Claire Hudson, as well as Aaliyah Texiera, all tied for the league lead for defensive scoring so far in terms of the points category. Aaliyah, of course, with those 3 goals right now, that's been big time for her Winnipeg Ice. And the goaltending's also been huge for the Ice. Gina Plett's been great. Isla Matthews as well has been pretty strong so far this season. Taking a look at Madison Freeze, she's a big part why Pembina Valley is able to come away with 2 wins this past weekend. She makes her way into the top of the rankings, and of course, both Avros goalies and Anya Cohenhowen and Adriana Almeida round out this top 5 for the time being. Check out the full stats on MFHL U18 AAA.com. As we're gonna get into some power rankings now. Just taking a look at how the past weekend went. I think it warrants some change in the power rankings. So we're going to give it our best shot here, as the top 3 hasn't changed, even though the Ice and Selects lose this past weekend. The Ice played very well against Pembina Valley. They put up over 40 shots against them, got goalied a bit, and Pembina Valley showed that great resiliency, right? And that's why Pembina Valley has jumped up into the 4th spot. But before I get into them, just want to say I don't think the Ice, the Selects, or the Avros did anything this past weekend to warrant them getting out of the top 3. Of course, the Winnipeg Avros maybe having the strongest weekend out of the 3 teams with the amount of goals that this team put up. And the Selects bouncing back really nicely after their first loss of the season against the Winnipeg Ice, which, that one could have gone either way on Wednesday night. But as for why Pembina Valley jumps up 4 spots from 8th to 4 in the power rankings, well, they had honestly the most impressive weekend out of any team not named the Winnipeg Avros. Honestly, you could make an argument that they did have the most impressive week. Not only did they have their first 2 wins of the season, but it came against the Winnipeg Ice and the Westman Wildcats, who both look to be, in my opinion, have shown signs so far of being championship contenders. And, for the Pembina Valley Hawks, it may be like this all season long against the top teams in the league, where you're having to rely on your goaltending and, you have to work just a bit harder to create your opportunities. But if you're able to cash in on those opportunities, able to show resiliency and get great goaltending like they have and did this past weekend, things could look a lot different for this Pembina Valley Hawks team moving forward, and big reason why they move up 4 spots there. For the Capitals and the Chiefs, didn't move any of those teams around. I guess with the Chiefs staying in the 6th spot, they've only played 3 games so far. Of course, they didn't play any league games this past weekend because they were out of province in a tournament. And I feel like just keep them there because there's no point of really moving them up and down if they haven't played any games, right? As for the Central Plains Capitals, the reason I didn't move them and I moved the Westman Wildcats down is, they're able to get a win to start off their weekend against the Interlake Lightning. Yes, they gave up 5 goals in the next 2 games each, 10 goals in total in the Saturday and Sunday games combined against the Winnipeg Ice and Eastman Selects. But, the Capitals, got to give them credit, got to keep them where they're at for the time being, just because they're still, of course, as we take a look at the standings, in that 4th spot. And yes, my rationale for Westman being over them last week was because, they were able to beat them. But that was going into those power rankings. Going into these power rankings for the second edition, we've done them this year. Westman ended up, losing 2 of the 3 games on the weekend. Just noticing now that they ended up, of course, beating the Interlake Lightning. So honestly, Westman should probably be 5th in these power rankings still, just moving down a spot, and Central Plains should have been moved down to 7, actually. So yeah, my bad on that. But still, Westman having a worse week compared to the teams above them, except for the Central Plains Capitals. That's an error by me. So that's why Westman, I guess, is in the 7th spot. For the Interlake Lightning, they came away with no wins on the weekend, so that's why they end up getting the 8th spot. Power rankings brought to you by Movement, Fitness, and Performances. Honestly, really bothering me right now that I made that error. We're going to try to fix this right away. As we're going to send it to a commercial break here. Once again, we'll be back soon. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Alrighty, so yeah, my apologies. We'll finish off talking about the power rankings right away. So this is how it should have looked. Now, reason I went back on this is you got to give the teams respect, right? And just given that the Wildcats have, beaten the Capitals in their head-to-head matchup during the season so far, and they go out and even though they come away with 2 losses on the weekend, so did the Central Plains Capitals. So for the Westman Wildcats, they defeated the Interlake Lightning, the opponent. The Capitals defeated by a bigger score. And honestly, their losses, thought they were pretty competitive in that game against the Winnipeg Ice. Winnipeg got fantastic goaltending from Isla Matthews. She earned player of the game from our broadcast, as well as the Winnipeg Ice gave her. the player of the game in that one, right? It was Gina Plett who ended up starting in that matchup against the Westman Wildcats. It was Isla Matthews who started against the Eastman Selects and ended up getting the player of the game from us as well as from the Winnipeg Ice. But Plett stepped up in that game big time. Her defense in front of her made things tough against the Wildcats, even though they were creating some good chances throughout that game. Just a bit snake bitten. And of course, against the Pembina Valley Hawks, right? Even though they end up going up in that game and not being able to secure the lead, they're still able to take Pembina Valley to a shootout, or rather Pembina Valley took them to a shootout. As for Central Plains, they moved down 2 spots in the power rankings just because of, like I said, their weekend not being as strong on paper as the Westman Wildcats, and the Wildcats, of course, have the head-to-head over them. And as for the Interlake Lightning, tough weekend for them. A lot of goals given up throughout the Saturday and Sunday matchups they had, as Kelsey McComb looks to get her group to regroup coming up in the next stages of that team's schedule. These are the power rankings brought to you by Movement, Fitness, and Performance. Be sure to check back next week as we'll have some more power rankings to show you all. Spoke about this. There's not much action going on this weekend in the MFHL, but it will be 2 rivals going at it. The classic matchup that is going to be on tap for 2 games, and we're actually going to have the Saturday matchup broadcasted in Shoal Lake. I'm excited to make the drive out. Never been to Shoal Lake, Manitoba. But I've only heard fantastic things about just what that atmosphere is like down at the Communiplex down there in Shoal Lake. So it's touted as one of the hardest places to play in the MFHL. The travel time for anyone is always, usually a factor. And then, of course, it's a tougher rink to play in because of some of the details in the arena, at the ice surface, in terms of the advantage with the home bench, in terms of line changes from what I've heard. But yeah, I expect this to be a fun matchup on Saturday. Can't speak to how the second game is going to go because we won't be covering that one in Hartney. But yeah, you take a look at both teams heading in as we take a look at the standings here. The Westman Wildcats coming into this one, they have the 4th most goals for in the league. And defensively, the numbers don't look fantastic on paper, but they're about a middle of the pack in the goals against category. It's a team that can also connect well on the power play, a team that's led by who I think is the most skilled player in the MFHL this season, in Ivy Perkin, and they've been able to get some decent goaltending at certain points this season too, from the likes of Indigo Stone. Not sure if she's going to be the starter in this one coming up, but going up against the Yellowhead Chiefs team that, in comparison to years past, they might not have their strongest roster, but a team that has proven that if they are able to play their best this season, they're able to give any team in the league a good game, I'd say, even though they've only played 3 games, right? When we saw them back at the Central Plains Showcase, that was a team that I felt looked better and better as the season went along. They had a weekend to do some great team bonding with each other and experience some success and experience some losses as well in the Canadian Crown tournament. But this is a team that, even though Derek Tibbetts is no longer the head coach, it's a coaching staff that has been known to make adjustments as the game goes along to help this team benefit the best they can. I think a big key for the Yellowhead Chiefs in this game is, of course, looking to contain that high-octane offense, that top line of the Westman Wildcats. Look to shut down the neutral ice. Don't let them get going on transition. And for Yellowhead, I think the biggest key to them winning this game, like in many cases, it's going to be winning the puck battles, winning the races to the puck, winning on the forecheck, It's a Yellowhead Chiefs team that, no matter what the year is, it's a team that likes to play a physical game too. So we'll see if they can use that to their advantage, as well as the home crowd, the home ice. As I would take it that most of the fans there are going to be Yellowhead Chiefs fans. But a great thing about what Yellowhead is going to be doing is they're going to be doing a 50-50, a raffle and bake sale for their cancer care fundraiser game this Saturday. I think this is fantastic, being able to raise funds and give back to fighting against what is the worst disease out there, in my honest opinion, in cancer. So it's great to see these teams in this league, in particular this weekend, the Yellowhead Chiefs doing a cancer care fundraiser. As, yeah, if you're able to make it down to Shoal Lake, if you're within that area or close to getting to the arena, get down there. Late afternoon game in what should be a fun game to watch, and your money, if you do go there, the 50-50 and all that great stuff will go towards a great cause. So be sure to attend that game if you can, as it's going to be the cancer care fundraiser game for the Yellowhead Chiefs. As for the Pembina Valley Hawks, a team that's going to be going out to Blaine, Minnesota, to battle against, well, some teams from down south, as they'll be taking on the Mountain Cats Academy team, the Carolina Junior Hurricanes, the Dallas Stars Elite Squad, as well as the Anaheim Lady Ducks. Best of luck to the Pembina Valley Hawks, who are going to be going down to Blaine, Minnesota in this upcoming weekend. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be other teams from the MFHL too going down there. We'll confirm that in just a moment here. But yeah, in what's going to be a more quiet week in the MFHL, we're going to have the Westman Wildcats taking on the Yellowhead Chiefs, available to watch on our network. Of course, a portion of the money you spend on that game goes back to the MFHL, not just us. So it goes back to help better this league in part, or as part of that, it also ends up benefiting the players and teams in this league as well. So thank you to everyone that supported so far during our game days. We can't wait to have you along for the ride if you end up being a first-time buyer too. And yeah, striving to bring you the best quality that we can in the world of live streaming in the amateur hockey space here in Manitoba. As we're going to hit you with another promo screen. We're also going to showcase some of the content that we have coming up from other leagues here throughout this month. And yeah, also an event we're going to be doing near the end of this month, actually starting next week. So we'll show you that, and we'll come back for some final words on this edition of the pod. And welcome back to this edition of the MFHL podcast, pretty much marking the end of this one, as I want to thank you for tuning in if you have to this edition of the show. Got a busy day ahead as always here on the network. MMJHL podcast coming out at noon. We got a high school hockey game that's going to be coming out as well, as we'll be broadcasting it at 4:20 p.m. That's going to be the start time on our Uscreen service. And then we also have an MMJHL game day matchup tonight as the defending champion St. Boniface Riels in that league take on, which is going to be the home side in the St. Vital Junior Victorias. Going to be broadcasting more high school hockey tomorrow, as well as releasing the High School Hockey League podcast. And on Saturday, of course, we head to Shoal Lake, as it's going to be a cancer care fundraiser game for the Yellowhead Chiefs, welcoming in a rival for them. Every team in this league is technically a rival with each other, but it's a bit differently when it's Yellowhead and Westman. Just something about those teams. It's a historic rivalry in this league, and can't wait to be a part of that. Our first time going to Shoal Lake. As for the other teams in the league, checking in. I know that Interlake doesn't have anything scheduled for this upcoming weekend, so a week off for a team is they'll be looking to find answers and looking to regroup after starting their season off as the only winless team so far in the league. But as for the two Winnipeg teams, they're going to be heading to Blaine, Minnesota. Same with the Pembina Valley Hawks. As for the Eastman Selects, the defending champions, they're also going to be heading to Blaine, Minnesota to go out and play there. So yeah, teams heading down to the states south of the border coming up this weekend, as also Central Plains will. So every team except for Interlake is going to be in action in some way coming up this upcoming weekend. We'll have the recap for you from not only the game we're doing this Saturday in Shoal Lake, but from how all the teams in the MFHL that are competing down in Blaine, Minnesota ended up faring once the time comes to tell you all about how the weekend went for those 5 teams. But as for now, on Ep.6, Season 3 of the MFHL podcast, I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. I want to thank all of our sponsors again for supporting us and sponsoring this edition of the podcast again, and Movement Fitness and Performance, Goaltenders, Terrico, Elite Prospects, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Until next week, everybody, I'll see you then. It's been your host, once again, Graham Forsyth, saying peace out and so long, everybody. Take care and have a wonderful and safe weekend.